Hi, everybody. How are you today? I'm so excited. This is day 5 of 9 to 12-year-olds, and we're doing a painting today. So I thought because we've been having some warm weather, we would paint. So we're going to do a painting together, step by step, on how to do a robin, which is super exciting. I love painting birds. They're very cool little creatures, and they can be really easy to paint because they have very unique colors in them. So I need you to get your canvases out, your paintbrushes, some water, and then on whatever kind of palette you're using, we're just getting, if you have black, great. If not, we're going to make some dark brown, and you need a little bit of each paint. So red, yellow, blue, white, and black. Okay? Sorry, I just forgot my white. So let's get started. I'm going to show you the steps, and I'm doing this early in the day, so hopefully you can also stop and rewind if you need to, if it's going too fast. But I'm going to try and show you all the steps for color blocking a bird. Okay? I'm also really excited because I'm in the studio today. Today is kit packing day, which means that I'm getting ready for next week. So it's a nice break from my house, and I'm always so excited to be in the studio. So let's get cracking. Here is our canvas. Okay, so I'm just going to get the camera in the right place. See the palette. I'm going to try and paint so that you can see everything that I'm doing. See all of my technology, my laptop, and everything. Hilarious. There we go. Okay, so what we're going to do first is basically, I wanted to keep it simple, so we are going to have a bird sitting on a fence post. So one thing, when you have your pencil, what I want you to start with is that we're going to create the fence post just about, I'd say it's about 1.5 inches from the bottom. It doesn't really matter how big your fence post is, it could be really short. But we're just blocking this out so you know where the fence post is going to be. So I like to keep it sort of in the center, or it could be a little bit off center. That's up to you. The next thing we're going to do is create the body of the bird. So I need to leave a little bit of space here for his legs. But remember in our drawing classes that if you're looking at animals, we're kind of creating, this is like his chest. I'm going to do it darker so you can see. That's going to be his big puffed out chest, okay? And then with a bird, the shapes, when it comes down towards the tail, it's almost like we're creating a larger egg, okay? So this is his chest, this is the bottom of his body, and then we need his head to be up here a little bit. So he's standing up pretty straight, and he's got a little beak coming out. So you might think, oh my gosh, what a silly looking bird. But these are the basics for any drawing, just like we talked about with the animals, that we're finding shapes within the animal to first draw. So if you need to stop that and start again, no problem. I'm going to add his little tail just coming out, his feathery tail there. Okay, so those are the basic mechanics of a bird. He is going to have some legs. And then now we start to smooth out the shapes. Remember, we find the areas that can be filled in. And he's got this big red chest, and I'm going to try and make his wing curve out. He just needs a little bit of fluffiness here for his wings. Okay, so that's the basics for the bird. You can even, if you feel more confident, I can even add the eyeball coming in here. So his beak's going to come over his mouth, and that's the space for his eye. All right, take a minute, and if you need to, you can go back and do that again. But basically, we start with his chest, right? And it's okay if your bird is tipped over or if he's standing up a little straighter, that's okay. We can adjust. You're going to do the egg shape for his big body, a circle at the top for his head. I think I added the tail next. And then his wing, I just went up a little bit just to show that he was fluffy. And the reason I put his wing in here is because it's going to be a different color than his chest. Okay, and then his beak and his eyeball. So that's it. We're going to keep it nice and simple. In the background, I'm going to just very lightly sort of put in a horizon line. Okay, so those are the mechanics, the background of how we get our bird on the canvas. Of course, I'm in the studio, so I can't find anything. I was just looking for an eraser. So if you want to, you can erase in here in the wing and his chest area. Just because our paint might not cover all the way. Ooh, I see one. Okay, hold on. You go ahead and erase that right away. I'm coming back to erase it. So if you're doing this with really heavy body paint, it's a lot easier because the heavy body doesn't stick as well, or it covers completely over your canvas. But sometimes when you have, our paint is a little bit thinner than the stuff we use in the studio, so sometimes you just need to do some good erasing. And if it doesn't come off, that's okay. We're just going to add layers and layers and layers of paint. All right. Of course, because I pushed mine so hard to show you, it's not coming off completely. We're going to go with it. So one thing I was talking about before was color blocking. And what that means is applying, just trying to get close so that you can see everything I do. We're applying the color in areas that we can come back to and darken or lighten, but we're basically adding the darkest darks and the lightest lights. So just like we were drawing the cat face the other day, we put on the darkest parts first. So with a robin, they have nice orangey red chests and a black, kind of blackish body. So I'm going to do the orange and red first. So I'm going to start with mixing a darker orange, so almost red. Okay, so I want it to be really, really, really beautiful and bright. Okay, so it's almost red, I'm just using yellow and orange, and I'm going to put that in his belly area. So right now we're just putting the color on. Don't worry about where it goes or really even how much to put on. We're going to come back for details in a little bit. And then I'm just going to really quickly add a little bit more yellow just to a corner, because remember, if I add it to the whole thing, I'm going to spend forever trying to mix that to be a lighter color. So we're essentially just lightening up this area a little bit, just in the middle. So color blocking is just adding color by value. Okay, so I've got my darks and my medium light. So that's basically what I needed to do for his belly, just until we come back and do a little bit of detail. But now I'm going to go in and try and get some yellow for his beak. Now again, I want to mix a darker yellow. So I'm still using my same brush. I rubbed off as much paint as I could, and I'm trying to use my same brush, and we're just going to fill in his beak. Not a big deal. We're going to come back to that whole thing and touch up the color, but that's as far as I want you to go. All right, so now if you have black, we're going to use black, and if you don't have black, if you remember, what you can do is add a little bit of blue to your orange and make a nice dark brown. So I'm going to show you that. And you can even pick up some red in there. So blue and orange are complementary colors. When you put them together, they make a brownish color. I can add a little bit more red, almost like a purpley dark color. If you do have black, we're going to use black. So that it's looking very, very red to me on my screen, so I'm just going to add some more blue. Playing with colors is really just going back and forth and back and forth, trying to find that right mix. So if you want to use it's funny, it looks very purple on your screen, but in my studio, it looks very brown. So we're going to add some black if you have it. And if not, your bird will have a purpley black back. Okay, so right now we're just coming in to the whole wing. And I like that purpley color, so I'm going to add some of that too. Just coming up right to that orange. Don't pick up the orange because we don't want it to come into our black. And they mostly have a black head. So I'm going to go around. Now I left that little eye bit because I want that to be white. And the one thing about adding, and underneath his chin here, it's going to be white. So we're going to leave that for a little bit, just a tiny bit of black. So the one thing about adding color is that you don't want to overdo it, and if you know that a color is going to be darker or lighter, then you want to leave that open. You can even add, if you want to, in your black, a little bit of red, making like a dark, dark red. So I feel like with his tail, he needs to have a little bit of red coming in his tail. You might be thinking, what the heck are you doing? But it's just because not every bird or every animal has a solid color. So we're just going to play with it a little bit. So we're going to let this dry for a second, and we're going to work on the background. So wash your brush. And I want you to mix up some yellowy green. So remember how to do that? So we are taking a little bit of, to start a new puddle of yellow. And I want quite a bit because I'm going to be doing a background. Oh, you can't see me. And then I'm taking just a little bit of blue. Okay, so this is going to be just sort of the base background color. And in the background, I don't really want anyone to be focusing on my background. I want the bird to be sticking out. So I'm going to try and do a fade. I'm going to add a tiny bit of white to that too, just to make it softer. So I've got kind of a limey green, and I'm adding white. So what I'm going to do in the background here is just lay all that color down. You don't have to go close to the bird. We're going to leave a little bit of a line around him. With this one too, you can overlap your line for the legs and for the wood block that he's sitting on. Okay? Just because we're going to come back and add some detail there. I'll just get all that color on there. If you want, you can even, at the bottom, take some blue and mix it in. So it gives it a little bit of texture, a little bit of depth. It looks like something different down on the bottom. I'm going to do that on the other side too. So I'm mixing right on the canvas. So notice I'm not going everywhere, I'm just doing the dark sort of near the bottom. Okay. So it's a quick application of color. We're just putting, see if I can get closer for you. I'm almost scribbling with my brush. So I put the lime green on the top, put it everywhere. When it's nice and wet, I just touch it with a tiny bit of blue and it creates like a little bit of space. Now I'm going to go in and grab some white and kind of mix that on your palette first, just so it's a nice light color. And I'm going to go around the bird. You can overlap a tiny bit into his feathers, just adding a little bit of white. You might be thinking, why are we doing this? But again, I want everyone to be looking at the bird, not at the background necessarily. Okay? So I'm only going around the bird. And if you're starting to run out of wet paint to mix your white into, just go back and add, just grab a little bit of that lime green and mix it into your white, just because we want it to be a lighter highlight around the bird. Okay, so I can see the highlight. Looks like an outline, and now I'm just going to blend that into my lime green again, because I don't want it to be so stark. I like the highlight of it, but I just don't want a ton of white to be showing. All right, next thing we're going to do, we're going to move up, and this time I'm going to start with the greeny white. So I'm mixing some of that lime green again, and I'm going to add a tiny bit of blue to it. So as I go higher up, down here we had the blue. As I go higher up, I want it to look more like sky, but still very muted and faded. So I'm just adding a little bit of blue into this just to make it more like the sky, so that there's a difference between the bottom and the top. Okay, so again, we're going to go over the whole thing kind of as fast as you can. Get all that wet paint. If you don't have enough paint, mix up some more. You don't want to run out of paint. Now I know in a lot of places we make sure that we do the background first. With color blocking, sometimes you just want to get that color on there because we're doing so many layers that we have to let them dry in between. Okay. So this is kind of like our sunset version when we were doing fades. You really have to work fast and wet. So I'm going to now add a lot more blue, some white, and I've got the basis of my greens in there and my blues, but I want to have, I need more blue. I want to have a blue sky. So I'm starting to get more blue as I go around. I don't know about you guys, I'm starting to run out of paint. I'm trying to work with only what I gave you guys, just so I can gauge how much more paint you need. So if you need more, let me know. So you can add a little bit of the darker blue in there too if you want. If you wanted to make your background darker. If you wanted to make it lighter, just add white. So again, color blocking means working in large chunks, basically. Okay. So now what I'm doing is just bringing in some creamy yellow into my mixed green that I've already done, just because I want to blend those lines again. So everything that we do in this background is really the same as the bottom. We're just highlighting the areas around the bird and trying to take the attention away from the background. So if you feel like there's a lot going on, if it's too dramatic, then I want you to add white to it. Okay, so I'm just trying to blend. It's okay to have some dark up there, but around the bird. I want the bird to be the thing that stands out the most. Classic. Andrea touched it with blue. I'm going to go paint a red. I'm really good at touching things with the wrong color, because I generally, in my practice of painting, I generally use one paintbrush all the time. And that might not be what you want to do, but over the years, I find that it's easier to mix color right as I'm painting. So you'll find your style. You'll figure it out. Okay, so down at the bottom, we need to make some kind of some brown for that little stump that's down there. So I am going to try and mix up basically all the colors. So I'm putting yellow and brown, yellow and red and blue all together, and it creates like this cool beige. Okay, so I'm going to put that on my stump. If you have black, great, we can use some black for highlight. And on one side, because we want to make sure that that's where the light is coming from. And then you can pick up a little bit of your white and mix it in there too. So again, nothing should really look too stark. We want it to have some blended areas, but you get the idea that we've indicated to our brains that that is a stump. Okay. All right, let's go back into our little fuzzy guy. I'm washing my brush. Crazy. I'm just gonna switch to a smaller paintbrush. If you have a tinier one, that would be ideal. We're gonna put on some of the white just so it can dry. And I wanna have the white background to his eyeball. Now keep in mind that when you have feathers, now is the time that we're gonna sort of bring those feathers, the white feathers are gonna overlap a little bit of the black. Okay, so we're gonna go outside the line a little bit. Same thing with on his chest here. I'm filling it in with white in the biggest area of his neck. It's hard to see because it's white. But I'm going to take a tiny bit of black. I'm making a light gray. And I'm just going to kind of bring in some gray into this area. Okay, so you can see I'm going over top of the black a little bit so that it looks like a feather. And I can see my line, so I'm just trying to bring this down a bit, just so I can hide my pencil line. All right. So if they start to look like their necks are getting too big, that's okay. We can come back with the black after and add some more there. But the white, we're going to put a black eyeball on top of that. So again, mix up some gray, black and white, or if you have some of that brown from the stump, we're going to use that. And we're going to go into the feathers on his wing now. So I want to do 3 rows basically of these feathers. So 3 little C shapes. Make sure you have enough paint. Kind of touching the edge of the feathers just so it can show a little bit of light that's coming through. So this is the gray that we're working with. And now I'm going to go up to the head, and with a little bit of dark gray, I'm kind of creating these feathers that are building up the head a little bit. Really want to have a tiny brush. If you don't have a tiny brush, you can use the back of your brush as well. So around his beak, he's got some feathers that kind of stick out. And then on his head, you want them to just look like the wind is getting in his hair. He's a wispy bird, that one. So by putting the black or the gray underneath the black, it now adds a little bit of dimension. I'm going to build up his shoulder a little bit, and every once in a while pull up. And you can have a smooth bird. You don't have to have these little wisps if you don't want, but sometimes it just makes it look a little almost like there's movement. Same thing with his tail. Maybe you need like 2 feathers sticking out there, just to show that maybe he's ruffled his feathers a little bit. Okay. I want to grab some red with my black brush that I'm still using. I made a new puddle. I'll show you here. Just a small puddle. I'm putting more red than black, but we're going to do some highlights on his belly, and I want it to be a nice dark color. So down underneath, you have to think the light doesn't really get down here, but he's got some feathers that will be darker on his belly. So we still have that lightness coming through, but basically we're just adding a little bit of dark for texture. You can add a couple more up his belly, not too far up. Remember, we stopped, we had this nice yellowy orange color, and then we had our darker color underneath. So that's what I want to keep, is that nice shadowy dark color. I'm going to add now some more yellow. So I'm going back in, washing my brush, grabbing some red and yellow, and making that orange again. Should still have some on your palette that you can play with. And this time I want to add white to it. So it's almost like, it's funny with birds and animals and stuff, if you look at them, we might look at that bird and say, yeah, he's got a red chest or an orange chest. But when you get up close to him, or when you really look, they could be quite light because of the sunshine, right? So I'm just going to add some more lightness right on his chest. And if it's too dark, that's okay. Go back, mix up some yellow and orange. What we're looking for is just to add some creaminess, so white, to your orange so that it's not as bright. There we go, that's a little bit better. I'm just adding some feathers at the front there that will make it feel like the light is shining right on that big chest. Cool. All right. So we're getting into, we want to go back and do some highlights on his eyeballs, and we need to do his legs. Actually, we'll do the legs first because we've got orange all mixed up. So in your puddles, I want you to find one that is a dark orange, and if you don't have it, we're going to mix it up. And you can even add it to this sort of dark blacky red that you had, but essentially we're just making a dark orange, the darkest orange that we can. So we might need, let's see what happens here. I'm making a new one because I didn't like that one. Of course, too red. And we don't need very much paint for this. But I might want to take a tiny bit of black. And notice I'm just doing this really, that's my tiny little black one, because I want to make sure that I'm not making the whole puddle too black. Okay, so that's like a muddy, gross orange brown. What I'm going to do now is just put on some legs. And they're going to go over the stick a little bit, over the stump, as if he's grabbing onto them. Then I'm going to take some of my brighter orange. Give him a little bit of light. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It's got little wonky legs, that's okay. We're not, we're just doing our best here. Just look at the shape between the legs too. You want to make sure it makes sense that if one leg is going straight and he's bending the other one, that the shape between is sort of like an almond shape, I guess. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, wash that brush because we don't need orange anymore right now. And I'm going to add a tiny bit of black. So with my tiny brush, I'm going into the eyeball and I'm going to make his actual eye. Oops, sorry. So you have to really look for the shape. It doesn't matter how big it is, but I'm going to have a little line that kind of comes out, just like that. So don't worry about anything else right now because we're going to come back and put white over top of that. As far as the beak, if you have your skinny brush, you can also add a little bit of line underneath his beak, and even up here, they have like a little dot on their nose. Okay. Again, with the beak, we want to add some highlight on it. We only did the orange, so I want you to go back in and grab some yellow. I need some more. And I'm going to make almost like a muddy yellow with the black, just adding a tiny bit of black to it. And I'm going to do the edge of his beak. I don't want it to be too bright. I'm going to mute it out a little bit. There we go. This also picks up the color from down here. It's kind of a nice contrast. Okay, we're getting there. We're almost done. So right now, the only thing that we need to add, I'm very happy with this. I hope you are. Takes a lot of work to do birds. I would consider this an abstract bird just because we aren't getting into the fine details of everything. But the more work you put into, I'm just putting some white highlights on the gray now. The more work you put into your details and the number of highlights that you add, the more realistic it will look. So color blocking helps you to start, and then as you're adding more and more layers, you'll see that it'll start to come together. So this is sort of the last step, is a dot in his eye, just to show some personality. Look at that guy, so ready for a worm. So if you feel like your neck is a little bit too long, don't forget, you can go back now and kind of bring down the feathers a little bit if you feel like that was just too much, but just don't cover up everything. I kind of like that he needs a little bit of, just need to bring down a little bit. Okay, if you see anywhere that you see a pencil line, I think I've done a good job at covering them up, but if you see a pencil line, that's okay. That's part of the process of getting this all done. But it's okay to have that. You can even add just a few feathers here and there, whatever you like. But I think that's a pretty darn good robin. So if you're having trouble following along, please make sure that you're stopping and going back. But I like that guy. He's cute. I love birds. They're so fun. Anyway, have a great day, everybody. And this is going to be super close to my face. Have a great day. I'm going to pack some kits. I'd love to see your robin paintings and see how everything turned out. But go and do some art. Have some fun. Have a great day.